In the first video of this series, I decided to cover a driver who in less than 3 years of running in the Cup Series full time managed to become public enemy number 1 in most fans' eyes. Fast forward to 2025, and now the driver is mostly seen as a lovable veteran who everyone is hoping will make it into victory lane sooner rather than later. To me, that's almost as crazy as seeing John Cena turn heel in WWE. A lot can happen in 17 years. The thing about Kyle Busch, however, was that there were many areas he could have addressed in order to avoid being public enemy number 1. Now, of course, you can't change the past, and it seems like most people have accepted Kyle Busch as a likable driver instead of a driver to hate. However, what if I told you that a driver became public enemy number 1 for something that wasn't even his fault, not only being disliked by racing fans, but even sent death threats? Today we go from a driver who earned his title as public enemy number 1 to a driver that was in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is the unfortunate story of Sterling Marlin becoming public enemy number 1. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking. How the hell did a likable guy like Sterling Marlin ever get on the bad side of race fans? Everything about the driver seems to be likable. The story of the Marlin family in NASCAR goes back even before Sterling's first career start in 1976. In fact, Sterling's father, Cuckoo Marlin, started racing in the sport all the way back in 1967, racing against the like of the Allisons and Red Farmer in the short track scene. And you wouldn't believe it, his dad was one of the most liked drivers on the short track scene. Sterling Marlin started racing in NASCAR at the age of 19, first being at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, then sporadically at Charlotte, Darlington, and Daytona. Once Sterling Marlin started to become a regular in the sport, fans and the garage area immediately gravitated towards the likability of the young driver from Tennessee. He was very friendly, quite humorous, and had a Tennessee draw that everyone loved to imitate.
I feel kind of hungry. Me and the old lady gonna get something to eat. Hey, I don't know, how about give me one of them chicken breasts?
Although Sterling Marlin wouldn't be considered the top-tier legendary driver, his talent was definitely behind the wheel, as he was able to score the Rookie of the Year in 1983, finish in the top 10 in owner points multiple times throughout the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and was even able to accomplish a feat that only a few drivers in history could accomplish.
It is Sterling Marlin in the lead. Down to the inside comes the 28. Coming to the line. Sterling Marlin's going to win it. And the winner of the 1995 Daytona 500 is again Sterling Marlin.
Sterling Marlin not only scored his first ever victory in the Daytona 500, but the Tennessee native was able to win the Great American Race back-to-back. This gave the driver so much momentum in 1995 that he finished third in the championship standings with Morgan McClure Motorsports, the team's best performing year. Unfortunately, he was going against Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt in their prime. So I guess a bronze medal is still pretty admirable. In the later part of the 90s, Sterling Marlin signed on with Team Sapco, later renamed to Chip Ganassi Racing, to drive the team's number 40 car with Coors Light as the primary sponsor. This car was so beloved by fans that to this day, fans refer to the Silver Bullet machine as one of the best looking cars in NASCAR history. So there you have it, a driver coming from a lovable racing family, an accent that everyone loved to impersonate, and a spirit that screamed good old boy that NASCAR as a whole loved to gravitate towards. But that goes against this series of becoming public enemy number 1. How can a driver like Sterling Marlin be disliked at all? Just doesn't make any sense. It would have to take a major altering moment in the sport for this driver to be on anyone's bad side.
Good evening and welcome to the Sunday edition of Sports Center. Alongside David Lloyd, I am Kevin Cork.
The sports world is in a state of shock right now. The Daytona 500 is supposed to be the NASCAR's brightest day. Today it's one of its saddest. Dale Earnhardt has been pronounced dead at Halifax Hospital this evening.
The 2001 Daytona 500, considered the darkest day in NASCAR history. The 7-time champion of Dale Earnhardt lost his life in a crash on the final turn of the final lap, an image that has forever stained the sport that we all love. During that time, nobody could really understand why Earnhardt lost his life that day. Fans saw the driver suffer more extreme accidents than this one. However, this was the one that took his life? It didn't make any sense, and broken-hearted fans just wanted to find the answers on how this happened. At the moment, nobody could have known that the seatbelt was the reason for Earnhardt's passing, or the fact that there was no safer barriers in the turns like there are today. All NASCAR had were the continual replays of the tragic incident, which made fans look at one person who caused the death of the Intimidator, Sterling Marlin. In the replays while running 3 wide, the number 40 Coors Light machine was seen moving up the track ever so slightly, causing him to make slight contact with the number 3 car. Contact was made, but obviously it wasn't an intentional hit. Dale Earnhardt was clearly blocking for his drivers that were running in the first 2 positions. Sterling Marlin was clearly faster, but Earnhardt was doing everything he could to hold him back. Once contact was made between the drivers, Sterling clearly backed off to avoid the number 3 car from spinning, but it was too late. Also, by how tight the cars were squeezed together going into turns 3 and 4, 3 wide, I'm surprised the accident wasn't sooner and involved more cars. The incident was a sheer freak accident that took the life of one of NASCAR's greatest drivers, but the fans didn't see it as a mere racing deal. Instead, they saw Marlin as the enemy in racing. The following days could only be described as a nightmare for Sterling Marlin and everyone at the shop. Marlin's website was littered with ugly emails from heartbroken fans, along with threats against him and his family over the phone to his race shop in Mooresville, North Carolina. It was getting so bad for the driver that he wished he was never there on the final lap to begin with. Sterling Marlin's first words about the incident were as followed. "Many people are frustrated and just looking for somebody to blame. I'd do anything to not be here today, to not address this subject. If people just come back to their senses, listen to what everybody's saying, and watch the tape, that's all I ask." Sterling Marlin was now public enemy number 1, and he had no idea how to handle the situation. Marlin didn't even want to show up to the following race at Rockingham, as the threats and hate were getting too large for the driver. In an act of desperation, he turned to the one person that he believed was the only one who could help him through this: the Intimidator's son, Dale Earnhardt Jr. On the Thursday after the tragic incident, Marlin went up to Dale Jr. at Rockingham, letting him know that there were quite a few people sending him death threats and saying that it was his fault that it happened. Jr. was immediately shocked by what he heard and held a press conference the following day to address the situation. Any notion or any idea or any blame placed upon anyone, whether it be Sterling Marlin or anyone else, is ridiculous and will not be tolerated. I think it is completely incredible some of the things that I have heard or have been told about. Once Dale Jr. spoke his mind on what he thought about the tragic situation, the anger towards Sterling Marlin and the death threats came to an end. I'm sure that many people were blindly pointing the finger at Marlin as a scapegoat for the loss of their favorite driver, but after his own son said that it was not Sterling's fault for his father's passing, many came to their senses. Obviously, it was not on purpose, and anyone who believes that doesn't understand the gravity of racing at the biggest race of the year. Every driver puts it on the line, and sometimes they don't always make it to the finish. And back then, they didn't always make it out alive either. Everyone, including Senior and Marlin themselves, understands the unwritten rule, and if Earnhardt was still here today, he would hold no hate to the Tennessee native. The following years after the 2001 season were a bit of a roller coaster for Sterling Marlin. By the end of the 2001 season, Sterling Marlin was able to finish 3rd in the point standings, only behind Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart, arguably 2 of the best in the 2000s. In 2002, Sterling had one of his best seasons yet, based on both performance and memorability.
Sterling Marlin is jumping out of his car. He's going around to look at the right front fender. But, he can't do that.
You can't work on your car under the red flag. That's the NASCAR rule.
However, he never saw the ending of that season, as a broken neck in a crash at Kansas took him out for the rest of the season. From 2003 to 2005, Sterling continued racing with Chip Ganassi Racing, but after his father's passing in the middle of the 2005 season, the two-time 500 winner seemed to have lost that competitive edge that he once had, as he never finished a race inside the top 5 again. From 2006 to 2009, Marlin ran 55 races in the number 14 car, which was his dad's old number before being let go by Gin Racing prior to the 07 Brickyard 400. After that, he ran with backmarker teams for the following 2 seasons before announcing his retirement in March of 2010. Today, Sterling Marlin lives a quiet life in Tennessee. It hasn't been easy, however, as the driver contracted Parkinson's in 2012, requiring him to undergo deep brain stimulation surgery in the early 2010s. And although his weight loss is noticeable and his movement is plagued by the disorder, the retired driver still stays in good spirit as the lovable driver many remembered throughout his time in the sport. So, I'm glad to see that he's seen in a good light by many in the sport, and rightfully so. Even so, at a time when NASCAR was hurting at its most, the one driver that was nearly impossible to hate managed to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time and became, for a very short time, public enemy number 1 in NASCAR.